Hi, I'm Crystal Moore, Head of Talent Discovery at Pinterest, and welcome to this session of Branding, Data, and the Future, an integrated approach to talent marketing. I'm truly excited about moderating a panel of amazing leaders today. We're going to break our session out into 4 different topics. So 1, branding brilliance, like how exciting is that? Next, get out your crystal ball to discuss future forward vision. We'll then discuss data and more data because I love data. And last, we'll wrap with ROI. So before we get started in discussing branding brilliance, let's kick off introducing our panelists. I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to Brittany. So Brittany, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thank you. So I'm Brittany Stone. I am at Nissan, and I'm the Director of Talent Acquisition for the Americas, which basically I lead talent acquisition for this half of the globe. That includes full life cycle and high volume recruiting, operations, employer branding, recruitment marketing, and contingent labor. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. We're so thrilled to have you here, Brittany. Next, let me introduce you to Celinda.
Hi, everybody. My name is Celinda Appleby. My friends call me Sally, and we are amongst friends today. I am currently the Director of Global Talent Attraction at Visa. And what that means is I'm basically responsible for all the global strategies, tactics, and tools before a candidate applies. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Sally. Because we're friends, I'm going to call you that. Next up, let's have Michelle.
Hi, everybody. So great to be here with you all. My name is Michelle Rojas. I'm the Associate Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Spring Health. In my role, I oversee how we attract, develop, and retain talent, but especially underrepresented talent. I also oversee our growing employee resource groups as well as an internal DEI task force. So happy to be here.
No, we're so happy to have each and every one of you. Thank you so much, Michelle. So let's get this started. We're really going to start off by discussing branding brilliance. So crafting a magnetic employer brand is no easy feat. We all know that. So the first question is really going to go to the entire group, and it's a 3-parter. I'll break it down for you first. So first, how have you successfully branded your organization or blended your organization's values, culture, and mission into a compelling employer brand? The second part of this question is the impact. What impact has this had on attracting and retaining top talent? And last, sharing is caring. So what key techniques can you share that might be applied across various industries? Who wants to go first?
I'm happy to go first.
Perfect.
So at Spring Health, we've done a number of things, but we've recently created an employee value proposition document, and this document is embedded into all of our job descriptions. The purpose of the EVP is to stay true and transparent to what it means to work at Spring Health. We are a hyper-growth company that moves fast to change lives. Our mission is to help individuals and organizations thrive by eliminating every barrier to mental health. That's a huge mission, and we recognize that it's a mission that requires intense focus to resolve. And so we don't really shy away from letting candidates know that the pace in which we operate, it may not be for everyone. So, if a candidate is up to the challenge to work alongside team members who are working to solve important goals, then we're really clear with the candidate about what they will receive in return and how Spring Health will invest in their growth and care. Additionally, another thing that we do is once candidates make it past our hiring manager interview stage, a recruiter invites them to meet with a DEI leader. And this leader could be a leader of one of our 8 employee resource groups or a member of our DEI task force to really learn more about the company, our culture, and our initiatives. And it's really an informal 15 to 20-minute conversation. It has no impact on the candidate's interview process. It's simply a way for us to really support the candidate in understanding us as a company. And this has had a really strong impact on how we've been able to attract and retain top talent, because it's, first and foremost, candidates are able to make informed decisions around whether they would like to work with us. We've also had really high NPS scores as it relates to those informal coffee chats. And, in the surveys that we share through the interview process, we've also had candidates share that they've never interviewed at a company that's been so willing to be transparent and open. So it really just goes a long way, being able to open your doors, make connections. We have candidates that are meeting folks in the interview process, but who else can they engage with to really ensure that they have a deep understanding of who we are as a company?
No, thank you, Michelle. I think being crystal clear, no pun intended, and being very transparent is so critical. You talked a little bit about DEI, so I'm going to ask a little bit more about that in a second, but let me go over to Brittany and back to that original question that I asked, that three-parter. Let me know if you need to repeat it or if you already have some thoughts.
No, I have some thoughts, and I'm definitely stealing some of the things that Michelle shared. I think I love the DEI ambassador spending some time. I think that is super impactful. So I'd say at Nissan, we're actually in the process of developing our EVP, and it's something that they haven't really kind of put a stake in the ground in the past or in the recent past. So just going through that process at the moment and looking at all of the stories that we can tell. And I think that's the exciting part, is that, I've been with Nissan, I'm coming up on a year. And when I was exploring the opportunity here, I realized pretty quickly that Nissan has a great story to tell, but they're really just not telling it to the talent marketplace. So I think that's part of my opportunity, is coming in, helping establish our EVP, and then layering it into all the platforms, career site, all the external platforms where we are branding ourselves, along with the job descriptions, and then also empowering our employees to actually be those ambassadors and have those same talk tracks. So it's a little bit of a work in process here at Nissan that I'm really excited to be a part of. For being such a large organization, we have a very, very large white space to play and establish this, telling our employer brand story.
No, I love hearing that. Storytelling is so important. And just a little tidbit, my first car was a Nissan, so truly passionate about the Nissan. So Sally, over to you. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts to my original question.
Absolutely. So I'd be a liar if I didn't agree with all of y'all about demystifying, the secret sauce behind the company values, mission, and culture. I'm in a unique position. This year we just launched our brand new EVP, Powering Payments and Uplifting People, in partnership with our employee engagement and communications team. Definitely all the kudos to them for doing that wonderful work. But a part of the talent attraction team's remit is to activate the EVP, and how we've been doing that is truly demystifying what it means to work here. If I were to ask you what Visa does, you would immediately think about that credit card in your wallet. And we're more than that. We're the payments behind that. And I'm a firm believer that no matter what your industry is, whether you're selling a product or a service or it's somewhere in between that threshold, it's all about the people. People want to know what people want. So we live in this hyper-connected world where I can decide I want black boots and I can hop on and I'll have them delivered, thanks to Prime, within 24 to 48 hours. And that is a challenge that us as talent leaders have to deal with, because sometimes the candidate journey or experience from application to hire is far longer than what the Amazon capabilities have empowered us to believe we deserve, what type of experience we deserve. And I believe if you have the right stories and you enable your recruiters to be those brand ambassadors, you can obviously empower people to understand what the timing, what they can expect, but more importantly, be primed to really shine in that interview process. And that is what we've been doing in the past few months. Granted, we only launched our EVP less than 6 months ago, so we're very, very early on in our foundation.
No, thank you. I think what's really great about this entire panel is like we're on a different journey, but the themes are the same. And some are working on their EVP, some have launched their EVP, but you hear the themes of empowering employees. We hear a lot around DEI. So let's pivot back to DEI a bit. And I'm going to come back to Michelle. So this one is for you, Michelle. How do you see the integration of DEI? And for those who don't know DEI, which I'm pretty sure most do, diversity, equity, inclusion, those principles are influencing employer branding?
Oof, in a lot of ways, the integration of DEI principles influences branding so much. DEI is about people. And, when an organization authentically embraces diversity, equity, and inclusion in its culture and its values, it not only enhances its image, but it also attracts a broader talent pool. So, for example, companies that can highlight their commitment to DEI in recruitment materials and job postings, showcasing a welcoming and inclusive environment, highlighting team member stories that speak to that, is really, really important. We have specific language in our job descriptions, again, that calls out the historical inequities that women and communities of color face in the job search process, but specifically in applying to jobs. And so we encourage them to apply, even if they don't meet every single requirement. And so, it's that guidance, it's that authenticity in that, being direct and saying, hey, we see you and we encourage you to still apply, join our team. We also have an incredible employer brand lead whose main objective is to ensure that our company brand is representative and inclusive. So he's been doing a tremendous job. He's been with our team a year now. And so we highlight different teams to, educate external candidates around what each team does. We also highlight individual team members that have unique backgrounds, identities, stories. Because we are a mental health company, we also have team member stories where they share their vulnerable mental health journeys, and how important it is that a product like Spring Health exists. And so these articles, and branding opportunities don't just empower our team members to share their stories and really have a voice, but the objective is also to inspire under-recognized candidates to feel encouraged to join our team. So while some of these things we're doing at Spring Health, I do want to call out this is not a one-size-fits-all approach. Every DEI strategy should really be tailored to the needs of the specific company. So to really adapt these approaches, organizations should really start by assessing their current DEI efforts, identify any gaps that may be existing, and create a strategy that's aligned to their branding. And so, I'll finish by saying encouraging diverse leadership and actively involving employees in helping to shape these initiatives can really make these strategies more effective and appealing to talent. So, harnessing the stories so that they can then be shared to communities that would really benefit from hearing from the voices, especially from voices of people who look like them.
No, thank you for your insight, Michelle. I mean, you really took the next question right out of my mouth. I was going to ask how other organizations can really adapt to these approaches. I was going to ask you about some of the examples. So I appreciate you just digging right into that. So for those that are listening, let's kind of pivot and shift a bit. As the landscape of talent acquisition evolves, staying informed about future trends is crucial. And although my name is Crystal, I don't have a crystal ball, but let's discuss the latest developments that help to really shape the future of talent marketing. We're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion first. So this one is for the group again. How do your organizations leverage DEI within your talent marketing initiatives? Let's start with Sally on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have actually my colleague, my peer leads diversity, equity, inclusion strategy. And him and I are closely connected because everything he does should be something that, we help leverage, we help build, we help design to ensure, like Michelle said, that the voices are heard, and not just heard, but heard by people that look like them. One of my favorite projects this year well, I say fiscal year because it did happen in the beginning of our fiscal, but last year in 23 was partnering with the DEI team and the IND sustainability team to bring Visa to Afrotech for the first time. And it was an amazing cross-functional engagement where, yes, we showed up as one Visa. We were one of the best booths there. Sorry, I'm going to brag a little bit there. But it wasn't just about how we showed up from a branding and marketing component. It was the first time we launched our EVP in the wild. But everybody that attended the event, from attendees and internal and external, all felt like we were connected, like we were listening to them, like we were part of the community. And it was really such a great feeling to be a part of the Black technology community, because it felt like a 1 in a million opportunity where we showed up as one Visa. But you do these things, like Michelle said, by learning what your challenges are, by listening to what your employees need, because all your strategies should be driven by the inside out, inside in, did I say that correctly? But what your employees feel and think is exactly what should be outside, right? My biggest pet peeve is when you go to a career site or you go to an event and they overarch on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then you go interview or you dive a little deeper into the research and you realize they just put a couple of colorful faces, people that look like me, but it's just a small group of them, right? And like I said, it's a journey. So being authentic to where you are in the journey and enhancing it step by step is the only way to go. Don't showcase something you're not in hopes of attracting people, because it will only turn them off in the long run.
You gave me chills, like literally chills, because it's so true. That is a really big pet peeve of mine. And I think we talk a lot about authenticity quite a bit here. So I'm really glad that you called that out. Brittany, come over to you on this. What are some innovative approaches that you're seeing within the DEI space, or what you're doing within your organization at Nissan?
Well, I'm not sure I'll say they're innovative. I think they're important, but maybe they're innovative for some people. So at Nissan, we do have an office of, a DEI office. And I think when I initially got here, I recognized that there's just a lot more we can be doing with that team to create better, synergies. And I'm going to use that word a couple times here, but in some different ways. But just some of the focuses that they have, and our office of DEI also sits with our philanthropy office. And I think there's some really interesting synergies of how that all comes together on where we can find those interesting talent pools that maybe we're just not focused on, or we're not serving them as much from a talent pipeline building perspective. So, kind of basic is just really, and every organization's structured a little different, but having that really strong synergistic relationship with the DEI office, I think, is kind of a step one. And that's what we're in the process of establishing. And then really leveraging and helping provide feedback back to that team on the investments they're making that actually talent acquisition can support, so they don't have to execute all of it, and that we all can leverage, or we can all kind of measure results, which I know we're going to get to ROI in a little bit, I think. But some of the other thoughts that that we're looking at, and that I've done in the past, is leveraging employee resource groups, or what we call as business synergy teams. And Nissan was pretty intentional about the naming of the ERGs to be BSTs, because they truly want to drive business outcomes through these groups. And that's an area where I think that there is so much happening, and these are where a lot of your very passionate people sit within the organization, that they can help us, to scale initiatives. What events should we be at? Where, what groups are we not serving? They can help extend the message when we talk about EVP work. They can help be those ambassadors to really leverage. Really, I'm talking about reaching more diverse talent pools. But then on the other side of how we show up from a DEI perspective, that is something that we are, really, I shouldn't even say exploring right now. We're resetting. that. And to the point of, you have to be authentic, and your, what you're putting out there has to match the experience once someone gets here. That's what we're really taking time to be thoughtful about, to ensure that we're telling an honest story. And we're okay to say we're on a journey. We're okay to say that we haven't, may not be the most ideal or where we need to be, but we are going to be honest and saying, here's the steps we're going to take to get there. I'm very proud. We were just named in the U.S. We got certified as Great Place to Work. And so I think that's becoming a really good launch pad for us to tell our story, and then make sure that story includes the DEI lens that is so important for us to focus on. Yeah. So I'm actually not sure I answered all your questions, but those were the thoughts I had.
You did.
Yeah, no, you said something, Brittany, that really stuck out to me. You mentioned leveraging and partnering closely with your DEI org, and this is something that's in the works at Spring Health, but we're actually partnering with our ERGs to host open houses in October for Global Diversity Awareness Month. And so this is going to be an opportunity for someone who's curious about Spring Health, maybe has heard about it, but never really interacted with us, to come and hear from our ERG leaders about our company culture, our open roles, interact with some of our TA leaders, be a part of an interactive Q&A, but then also we're going to have a networking component where, we want to ensure that people can walk away with an increased social capital, because we all know how important it is, how it's been crucial to my own career journey. So not only learning about our company, but also walking away knowing that there's someone there that you now have a connection with that you can, then leverage in the future, or ideally shortly after when we see you apply.
No, thank you for adding.
I love it. Thank you.
What I find so impactful about all of this, and I guess I'm gonna steal the word, because when I hear it, I don't know if you remember the movie, like synergies. I think of that, right? Because it's not just your job or their job or DEI's job or recruiting's job. It's all of our jobs. So I think it's important that we recognize how we're all making that impact. So I love hearing just that theme that's coming across. As we continue to talk about some of the future trends, AI, let's talk a little bit about that. Sally, so this one's really for you. As someone who is kind of leading in the design and implementation of TA strategies, how do you see the future trends of AI and personalization playing a role in Visa's talent acquisition efforts?
So I love that you say this. So my boss, my manager, has been talking about generative AI before it became a trending topic that we all see on Twitter every day. And it's not saying that I'm not a tech adapter, but it took me a little bit of time to say I'm going to use it in my day-to-day. And here's why. I always felt like the authentic voice had to come from a human and not a robot and so forth. But I've been using it for about 5 or 6 months now in my day-to-day. And I must say, I strongly recommend it. So to level set here, we're a very small team. I sit under the attraction, inclusion, and intelligence COE, but for the global attraction, it's myself and one other person. And we write all the comms for all of the things pre-apply in the candidate's journey. And we were doing that without generative AI support. Killing it, doing great. But when we started adding ChatGPT, which Visa has its own internal version, and it's very celebrated, and it is an open conversation for people to use, the adoption is a little bit delayed. I do believe it depends on what generation you sit of tech love for technology, whether you're using it or not. But some tips I can give you, especially if you're a lean team or you don't have an attraction leader or an employer brand leader, is getting to really acquainted with generative AI and creating prompts that work for you. So using things like, thinking like an employer brand leader with 20 years experience, write me a LinkedIn post, or, cutting and pasting your job descriptions and saying, using inclusive language, rewrite this job post. There is no magic tool, of course. for getting it all perfect, but it does help add or detract time from your day where you can be using to build on other strategies. I have seen our sourcers and recruiters quickly adapt to this. In fact, our head of sourcing is hosting a session in a couple of weeks where he's going to teach our North America recruiting org how to add it to their hiring journey to support their comms and interaction. So I definitely see Visa leading in this. And I love that our company is aligned. I know I've heard from many of my peers that companies are shutting it down. And so I appreciate that Visa has opened this path for us.
No, you're not the first company that I've heard that is doing that. It's kind of having their own internal resources and being very mindful of what they're putting out there. So I appreciate you providing some of your insight there. So let's do another pivot. For those that truly know me, they know data is my jam. And since we were just talking about AI, I feel like I should ask ChatGPT to make a song about data just for me. I'm actually a little bit curious now to see what it will come up with. But making informed data-driven decisions is integral to employer branding success. We all know that. We shouldn't be making assumptions. And we've seen what happens when people make assumptions, just kind of go out there without putting data behind that. So this question is for the entire group. How have you leveraged data-driven decisions to influence your employer branding and talent discovery initiatives? And if you can, share an example. So let's start off with Michelle on this one.
Sure. Again, huge shout out to our employer brand lead who's really been leading the charge on this one. But he's very, very data driven. Science will win is one of our company values. I am also a self-certified data nerd. But we've used NPS data to see the influence and effects of those DEI informal coffee chats that I mentioned earlier. We really want to understand, is this a way that, is useful to people's times? Are people getting, a benefit out of that interaction? And as always, how can we improve the process to be more useful? Also based on applicant data and various channel flows through things like LinkedIn, social media boards, job boards. We also have employment partners that we work with. We really want to focus highly on the metric of influenced hire. So wanting to see what social media channels, were involved in supporting someone to A, find Spring Health, but then B, and feel compelled to apply. And there's also a huge cost associated with some of, the partnerships and job boards that we work with. So we're very mindful of ensuring that there is an ROI. So, depending on the organization, we work really, really closely with them to say, hey, this is what our ideal candidate is for this role. And we really help work together to tailor that persona. But again, if we're not seeing the intended ROI, if we're not seeing them share the type of candidate that would best meet our needs, then we're not afraid to move on and to really find the partner that would work best. But it goes back to what you said earlier, true, about authenticity, right? There's so many employment communities out there, and we never ever want it to feel like a conveyor belt. You're just sending this talent and they're just coming our way. We're really keen on developing close relationships to these communities, and we're very careful with the communities that we work with. We vet them because we want to make sure that they're value aligned and that, the candidates that they support and nurture would be candidates that would thrive and be successful at Spring Health. And so it's a constant iterative process, but one that is significantly data proven and data driven.
No, thank you. Like you said, science, what did you say? Science will win or science always wins?
Science will win.
Science will win. I wrote it down. I made sure I wrote it down right. Brittany, what about you? What are your thoughts around data-driven decisions influencing just your initiatives that you're doing at Nissan?
Yeah, well, this is something that I talk with my team a lot about. It's hard to lose an argument when you have good data to show. And so we've been working on actually building out good data sets. Again, we're kind of early in some of our journeys just based on the evolution of talent acquisition at Nissan. So we're working through a lot of building out like really solid dashboards to that can, for executives, for managers, for our recruiters, for our stakeholders. But what, some of the tenets that we've talked about through this is, and particularly as we're getting into planning for next year, is pulling that data in to help build the business cases. So, for example, working on a business case for investment around some CRM investment that we want to make, really understanding, okay, looking at our career site, where, how much, where are people coming from? How much traffic are we getting there? And then showing kind of that fall off of where we're not seeing necessarily that traffic convert, and the reason why CRM can really support that work, is just a simple example of, how we're leveraging data and bringing that forward to really support the business cases that we need to, move forward to be successful. So I think data is like one of the most important things I would put that behind relationships. You have to have good relationships with these people that you're bringing the data to, so there's trust built, and they understand what you're trying to explain as well. But those are some of the things that we are looking at right now, of really leveraging it for future investment as we're building out, particularly our technology roadmap that will support a lot of our branding.
No, thank you, Brittany. So the relationships, trust, data is a really great equation on how to get to that level of success. Sally, what about you? Any thoughts around leveraging data-driven decisions?
I wish I was a data nerd. I dream in PowerPoint and colors, and Excel gives me nightmares. However, I agree with what everyone is saying, that no one listens to you unless you have data. And so I do, of course, leverage data for everything we do. Visa's on a journey. We have an amazing data analytics TA team that has been focused on post-apply metrics. And as we build out our talent attraction function, we're now focusing on attraction. The beautiful part is, and Brittany, feel free to contact me after, we just launched a CRM. So within the past 4 or 5 months. And what that means is we're super hyper focused on measuring how our communications are doing. And we're doing really well with a lot of our comms and engagement in the talent pipelines. I also manage our career site. So we're focused on where traffic comes. We're currently a global company that has over 188 career pages. That's a story for another day, but we track the measurements for all of those pages to ensure that people feel connected, and that the content works. Where are they going from and to? However, we just recently partnered with a recruitment marketing agency for the first time at Visa. And so our metrics and data will get better, but we had to really show those gaps this fiscal year to demonstrate that we don't really have a full candidate journey story to tell. The data isn't being pulled in with the tools we have, and we look forward to seeing how this recruitment marketing agency will help us elevate our storytelling.
No, thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited to just see and learn more about that journey, so I'll be following along for sure. Let's continue the discussion a little bit with data. We talked about DEI earlier with Michelle and how they've embedded some of that into their talent marketing initiatives. So this one is for you, Michelle. How do you leverage data in designing and implementing DEI strategies across Spring Health?
Yeah, no, I'm smiling because it's such an important question. It truly, truly is. Without data, you can't really move the needle when it comes to DEI, just, point blank. When I first joined Spring 1.5 years ago, the only thing I did for the first 1.5 months, 2 months was review employee data, sit with it, analyze it, splice it. And the second thing I did in the mix with that was listen. I spent a lot of time just listening to our employees. I actually started on the same day as our chief people officer, and we, in tandem, held 17 listening sessions, and we met with, I want to say, about 65% of the company. So it was a very emotional process, but it was a very quick way to really, really understand the pulse and the needs of the company. And so, long story short, I had amassed large quantities of data, qualitative, quantitative, data around retention, attrition, promotional cliffs, perception of company culture, our strengths, our improvement areas. And through that, I was really able to see where our employees wanted to go, essentially, where they were and where they wanted to go. And we were able to identify pretty immediate priority areas, especially as it related to retention and representation for underrepresented communities. And so I think DEI practitioners, because we often care so much about doing this work and doing it right, we may feel like we need to boil the ocean. I know earlier in my career, I felt that way, like there's so much to do, I need to do it all. But in reality, DEI work is a marathon. It's the business of changing minds and hearts. And it requires very structured, targeted, and data-driven approaches to solve problems. And so what's worked, we've been able to set really, really clear and targeted goals for representation across the company, many of which I'm happy to report we have been successful on. I want to give a huge shout out to Jem, who's also played a really, really pivotal role in how we've been able to source talent and track the representation of that talent. And so back in May, we rolled out a company-wide balanced candidate slate program using Jem dashboards, and we've been really successful in tracking compliance to that program and understanding which departments are hitting that requirement and which perhaps are slightly lagging. And what it's meant is that, we see that for roles that are successful in hitting that candidate slate, 56% of them are able to hire an underrepresented candidate. Whereas for roles that don't hit the slate, 0% of them are able to hire an underrepresented candidate. So again, the data does not lie. I do want to call out that it's ultimately up to the hiring manager to hire whoever they feel is best for the role. But what we've been able to learn is that when they have access to a more diverse pool of talent, then their hiring decisions change. And so that's all data that Jem has been able to provide us and that we've been able to really analyze deeply. And so as far as ways we need to improve, this is only our first year and a half of having really robust DEI strategy at Spring Health. And in the years to come, we really want to expand our strategy to be a more intersectional approach. And so I'm really excited to begin the work and to more appropriately support the intersectional needs of our members. But with that comes another data challenge, right? How do you make sure you're collecting all of that data and then looking at it in a very holistic, integrated way?
No, thank you for that. It's kind of a good segue into the last segment of our discussion today. Getting sad because it's almost coming to an end, but let's talk a little bit about ROI. Demonstrating the value of employer branding and talent marketing efforts to stakeholders is a critical skill. I know that Brittany talked a little bit about that, using some of those dashboards to drive those business cases. So this last segment we'll call ROI Mastery. And I'll start off with Sally. So this is a group question for everyone, but I'll start off with Sally first here. In terms of ROI, how can organizations effectively measure the impact of DEI initiatives within talent acquisition, or just measuring the impact of your initiatives overall?
Yeah, absolutely. So I will say it's a journey, right? And we're just getting started. And so as 2010, as this is going to sound, we've been focused quite a bit on impressions and traffic and things that are very important to the first part of your journey in creating a foundation and a baseline. And with the implementation of the CRM, we're looking at communication, open ratios, does our content work? But like I said, it's a journey. So start with the data that you have, knowing that gaps in your storytelling will occur. It's just natural because of the plethora of technology tools that people have that sometimes do not speak to each other. You sometimes are making a lot of multiple reports come together. But keeping everybody informed is very important along the process, because if people don't feel like they're a part of what you're doing, then it easily falls off in their importance radar. And in talent acquisition, especially in this talent marketplace, there are so many things that are pulling away from leadership, from recruiters' minds, because of their workloads, because of their importance level. And so keeping a very strong focus on walking people along in the journey, being honest that sometimes the data isn't saying the story you want it to say. Sometimes you're want to do, and I love that Michelle is, meeting her goals, but sometimes you're unable to meet the goals, and coming up with ways to explain the why and how you're going to get there, because it is iterative. But without ROI, without being able to demonstrate a solid win for the team, people do lose focus. So make your strategy easy to manage in the first iteration, and continue building upon it as you get more strategic with more data points.
Yeah. And sometimes,
Thank you, Sally.
Sometimes you don't always get the KPIs right? Like,
Right.
Like, you're way too ambitious, and you're like, let's reel it back. So it's a constant learning for sure.
Brittany, would love to know your thoughts, because you did talk a little bit about just kind of using those dashboards, using that data. So how do you align the TA function with the business goals, which you mentioned a little bit more, but would love to dig in a little bit better. What are some of those metrics that you use to demonstrate ROI, and just really tied to some of the transformation that you've seen since you've been with Nissan about a year now?
Yeah, so I'd say some of the metrics I've used in the past that I'm kind of bringing here is looking at funnel data. And there's, how are we looking at whatever data we can capture? How are we looking at where maybe there's fall off of women or people of color or wherever, and then going and trying to solve or like dig in more where we see fall off. Is one way of which we use data. But as far as aligning with, kind of the go forward plan and what we want to build here, one of the first things I came in and about a year ago, and there was a metric around diverse slates and panels, and which I've had experience with in the past. And talk about iterative, it's definitely, I've been through multiple cycles of that one. But what I finally realized was we kept talking about tracking diverse slates and panels. And for me, I want to automate it so I can get press a button and get a nice dashboard and all the data, and I can help go solve problems around that. But really what I realized is we did not have a common definition of what diverse panels and slates are. And I was like, okay, we're just going to back this up. And I can't automate this, because the pain point was the automating and tracking. I said, I can't automate this unless we have a common definition of what it is. So those are some of the things we're talking about right now, which I'm excited about, because that allows me to bring some good insight and research to the table of how we want to craft that. And then I can leverage some of the past pain points that I've been through on that process to say, hey, this is where we kept getting stuck. This is where we need to keep pushing forward. We may not hit 100%, but even if we hit 50%, we still have to try. And it's that piece. It's the trying and keep moving forward on this, because it will, to the point of the marathon, the journey in DEI, you've just got to keep putting it out there. And not everyone has the stomach for that, but you have to keep reminding them, and you keep bringing that data forward. So.
No, thank you. I chuckled a bit just because a lot of the things you were saying truly resonated with me. So I appreciate you sharing. And wow, I feel like this time with each and every one of you just flew by. I wish that we could be sitting on a couch together and just continuing to have this conversation. I think we could just talk hours and hours about all of this. So want to give my thanks to everyone for listening in, first of all, but also to our amazing panelists, Brittany with Nissan, Sally, because we're friends with Visa, and Michelle with Spring Health. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your nuggets. I don't know about each of you, but I have a whole page of things that I was writing down, a lot of cool quotes. So thank you again for your time. And I really appreciate everyone else that listened in today.